How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your weekly forecast of what the fuck is going on in the universe for March 18th through March 25th of 2019. Thank you guys so much for being here and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. I'm so happy you can be here. If you're watching this, that means so far you have survived Mercury retrograde, because this one, from what I've heard, has been pretty awful for a lot of people. Luckily, I haven't been affected by it too much, but it's definitely shown up. I mean, it's a Mercury retrograde. It's definitely shown up a few places in my life. But regardless of that, you know, March has been a very interesting month. It's been kind of foggy and diluted. I've been really liking to use both of those words for this month. However, with this week, we get some clarity. We get some fresh insight. We get some light, and we get some things kind of turning direction, because this week we don't have a lot going on, but we do have some important things going on. The first thing that's really going to be happening this week is we're going to be having Venus squaring Mars. We're going to be having the Sun going into Aries, into its sign of exaltation. It's not the Sun's favorite sign to be in, but it's his best friend's house. So the Sun can operate, you know, on a whole better, on a better level right here. As well, on the as the Sun enters Aries, basically we have the spring equinox. Things are starting to get bright. Up here in North America, we get spring happening, and then it's going to be summer, and we get to be warm again, and we get to have fun. And then also, as the Sun goes into Aries, we have the Moon going into Libra, basically as that happens, and we get the full Moon in Libra happening on the equinox as the Sun goes into Aries. So there is a lot of energy, a lot of stuff happening on, what is that, Wednesday? Yeah, that's Wednesday. So we're going to definitely talk about that. However, later on this week, we also have Mercury conjoining Neptune again right before it stations direct. And I think this is also going to play a big role in this week, because after this week, after we have the Sun going into Aries and this full Moon in Libra, spring is beginning, Venus is squaring Mars, and Mercury is going to go back over Neptune. By the time we get into next week and we start talking about the end of March going into April, we have Venus going into Pisces, we have Mars going into Gemini, we have Mercury stationing direct. There's a lot going on going into next week. So this week's kind of like that change of play, that change of momentum. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the horoscope. So starting off today on Monday, we do have the Moon entering Virgo. However, before it enters Virgo, it's going to make a nice little trine to Jupiter while it's in Leo. And so Monday, you know, we have this Moon being in Leo. It's trining Jupiter. This is kind of like, you know, based off what we got off of last week, with this Moon being in Leo, we could feel a little bit more confident, a little bit more emotionally passionate about what it is that we're a little, like, kind of pursuing. You know, last week I really kind of gave all of the energy to Mercury. This week I'm really going to give a lot of the energy to the Moon, just because of this full Moon and everything like that. However, as the Moon is in Leo and it's making this trine to Jupiter, I think it comes back down to is, you know, these feelings of the Moon being in Leo. It's kind of like, where do we feel confident? Where do we feel, you know, ready? Where do we feel eager and passionate about exploring? I think that's going to be that Moon in Leo trining Jupiter, and I think that's important to really feel out. You know, the fire signs are very much about feeling things and expressing those things and kind of being that fire, being that energy. So on Monday, as we have the Moon making that trine to Jupiter, it's going to later go into Virgo, where this is where the theme's going to be kind of, you know, a little bit more, I don't want to say meticulous or detailed, only because we have Mercury retrograding and it's still Pisces season. However, as the Moon goes into Virgo right before we have this full Moon in Libra, what's going to be important, though, is, you know, what did we take from this Moon in Leo opportunity? The Moon was in Leo, we were feeling good, maybe feeling a little bit more of ourselves, feeling a little bit more confident, or maybe Leo, that sign is in a weird place in your chart, so it could be kind of an uncomfortable area for you. The Moon going into Virgo is really kind of like, hey, it's time to lay this down on the ground. It's time to, you know, oh, what's the saying? I can never think of the sayings when I need them, but it's kind of like sowing your seeds, like planting your seeds, tilling your garden, doing the work that you have to. And then as we get into Tuesday, what's going to be important about, you know, the Moon going to Virgo on Mondays, as we go into Tuesday, we're going to have the Moon starting to trine Saturn. It is going to trine Mars, and it is going to oppose Mercury and Neptune. So then as we go into Tuesday on the 19th, while the Moon's in Virgo trining Saturn, this is really laying down that groundwork, you know? It's kind of like, what did this Mercury retrograde kind of show us that was unclear? What did this Mercury retrograde show us that was a little bit diluted and foggy? The Moon in Virgo wants us to look at Neptune, wants us to look at Mercury retrograde and go, how can we be more clear and concise about these things? It's kind of like, I don't want to say fixing everything that happened with the Mercury retrograde, but it is really just about going, what didn't work and what will work, and what solutions can I plug into this situation that are going to help me for the next time. You know, it's not about knowing the right answers right now, but it's about at least proposing a solution to this stuff. So as we go into Tuesday, well, the moon's in Virgo and it's trining Saturn, it's trining Mars. This is going to feel very productive. This is really good. You know, Saturn's in Capricorn. It's, you know, it's flying direct. It is going to station retrograde, I think, later on in April. However, Mars is also at the last couple degrees of Taurus too, where Mars in Taurus, you know, we were talking about this last week, it's very fixated on what it's doing. It's very much in the position that it's in, not a whole lot's changing it. So while you have the moon in Virgo trining Mars, trining Jupiter, this is a lot of constructive energy with that earth modality, or I should say that earth element of being grounded, getting things that are physical and tangible, you know, ready. I don't want to say creating any of that type of stuff, but the best way to put it is really laying down the groundwork with this stuff. And that's really important as we go into Wednesday, because Wednesday is our big day of the week. Wednesday is when we have the majority of things that are going on. Wednesday, on March 20th, we have Venus squaring Mars. And I say this first because we're going to talk a lot about the sun in Aries and this full moon in Libra. But I think it's really important to look at this Venus square Mars. It's, you know, Venus squares Mars every now and then. It's not the most important thing in the world, but as Venus is in Aquarius, where she's looking to connect things on a broader level, looking to go from the outside in when it comes to connection and bringing things together. Mars is in Taurus going, you know, not necessarily saying no to that in a sense, but while Mars is in Taurus, you know, Mars is this planet of action and drive and energy. It's in this earthy sign where it's, you know, kind of like a momentum, like, you know, an earthquake will shake the whole, you know, earth. You know, that's the whole point of it. Versus, you know, if you have Mars in an air sign, it's like a heavy wind thrust. Mars in an earth sign is very much like the ground is moving. But while Mars is in a fixed sign, it's moving in one direction. There's not a whole lot you can do about it. And while Venus is squaring Mars, this is kind of going like, here's the energy that I'm wanting to go and here's the direction that I am going in. I'm not exactly I'm not really in consensus with this direction that I'm going in, but how can I still find a solution around this? How can I still bring all the things together that I need to while using this momentum to my advantage? It's kind of like, you know, not just going, oh, Mars is in Taurus, I can't do anything, you know, I'm being lazy, or everything's going in this direction and I want to resist that. It's about going, you know, if this is the way things are going, if this is the energy that's kind of being placed, how can I still grab everything I need to utilize that momentum? And so as we go into Wednesday with Venus squaring Mars, it's kind of like, how do we get creative about bringing these things together that are going to help push us in this right momentum? We have the sun going into Aries. It's as a Leo and as the other fire signs could probably feel this too, we finally have the sun in a fire sign where it can, I don't want to say operate better, but it does. The sun is in exaltation in Aries. This is its best friend's house. It's, you know, the sun's starting to rise. It's starting to get warmer. The sun going into Aries is really about, you know, I'd like to say things like identity and how we view ourselves and things like that. However, the sun is kind of like the focal point of everything. The sun is kind of like, you know, all of the planets literally surround it. It's really about our light. It's really about what the light is being focused on. And as it goes into Aries, I think this is a lot to do with, I don't want to say confrontation because it sounds very antagonistic, but the idea of assertion, the idea of initiation. When you have the sun going into cardinal signs like Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, and I skipped one, Libra. And as you have the sun going into cardinal signs, it's representing the start of a new season. And so as we have the sun going into Aries, this is where the light starts to become brighter. This is when things start to become clear. This is when we can have the energy and we can have the drive to initiate change. You have to remember, Aries is also a Mars-ruled sign. It's about action. It's about drive and all that stuff. So if you've been feeling lost, you've been feeling foggy, I guarantee you on Wednesday you're going to have this, oh, I'm like, you know, I'm feeling a little bit more clear in my direction. But what's also important is that we have the moon going into Libra and we have this full moon in Libra. And this is, I want to hit on how important this is because, you know, a full moon is really, you have one luminary, you have the sun in one sign, you have the moon in another sign, and they're lighting up a dynamic. They're lighting up an axis of, you know, archetype. While the sun is in Aries, it's kind of like, what are we initiating? What are we, you know, addressing? The moon in Libra is about delegating. How do we, you know, if we want to put things this way, if we want to address things in this way, if we want to initiate this change, how do we delegate it and how do we go about it? What other avenues do we need to go through? You know, it's not about just banging on the door and kicking the door in and forcing ourselves, forcing entry. The moon in Libra is kind of like, if this is what you want to initiate, how do you have to bring people together for this? And that's very much moon in Libra stuff, like, oh, relationships. And of course, that's not always going to, be exactly what you guys are experiencing. But the idea of this full moon in Libra is going, if you want to initiate change, how do you need to bring things together? Where do you need to delegate this? And what does that really look like in practice? So what I wanted to hit on with that is, as we go into Thursday, though, the day after the full moon, we on March 21st, we're going to have the moon squaring Saturn and trining Venus for the Thursday and Friday, basically. And what's important about this is, while we have this full moon in Libra, it's like, okay, we want to initiate and we got to bring things together, we got to balance things out and delegate. The moon's going to eventually start to square Saturn, where it's going to be a little bit rough, where Saturn and Capricorn's like, this is what needs to get addressed, this is what needs to get handled, this is where you need to, lock your foundation in. The moon in Libra might have a little bit of trouble going, even though I want to do, I wish I could make a win-win situation. Not saying you can't make a win-win situation, but it's kind of like, you are going to have to make some hard decisions with what you are initiating, what you are putting yourself into. Because Saturn and Capricorn's going like, I'm not going to let you delegate these, changes and make you have all these hopes and dreams if it's not going to be realistic, if it's not going to be worth it in the long run. So while the moon starts to square Saturn, it's going to be kind of like, hey, if this is really what you want to initiate and change, what big decisions and what important decisions do you need to make about those things? The moon is also going to start trining Venus, and this is going to be on Thursday as we go into Friday as well. And as the moon trines Venus, Venus is in, it's also in Saturn's sign, it's in Aquarius. It's kind of like, Venus wants to bring everything together in the best way possible, and it's not about saying Venus can't do that, but Venus is in Aquarius and she has to get creative about going, it's not about we can't fit everybody in the boat, it's about how can we get creative about making space for that. So while the moon's in Libra, we got to delegate, we got to figure out a way to really initiate this stuff. Saturn and Capricorn saying, let's be real and serious about it. Venus in Aquarius, while the moon's trying that, is kind of like, there's a creative way to go about this and to bring everything together that you want, but it's going to take you, I don't want to say going outside of your mind or it's kind of like getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of your box, thinking outside of the box with this stuff, doing something that you've never done before. It's kind of like, the old saying, I can't even think of the old saying, but the idea of it, it's like, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results is going to make you go crazy, basically. Do something different this time. Do something different. Go out of your comfort zone. Do something you've never done before in order to bring everything together the way that you want it. However, as we then also go into Friday on March 22nd, we do have the Sun conjoining Chiron. I don't want to talk too much about that, but what I do think is important about the Sun conjoining Chiron, especially so early in the sign of Aries, is as we have the Sun going into Aries, it's springtime, we're feeling a little bit more charged up. Chiron being right here, it's kind of like, we're not just, initiating stuff just because, that's what the astrology is saying. It's kind of like, there's a little bit more of a, I don't want to say a deeper wound here, but there's more of a idea of healing that needs to be done in this area with ourselves, that it's a little bit more louder than usual. So while the Sun conjoins Chiron, this isn't about going, oh, I want to do this and I'm going to be happy and positive about it. It's like, if you want to do the healing work, if you want to do the work, this is what it looks like. It's kind of like, I know a lot of people, I've broken a ton of bones and I get hurt all the time. It's like, I always go to the hospital, but you'll always be, I can't tell you how many people I've met that will break their ankle or something, like, I don't want to go to the doctor. I'm like, that's, you're just going to bring yourself more pain. In order to do the healing work, you have to take your ass to the hospital. You've got to go, I need to be healed. So while the Sun conjoins Chiron on Friday, initiate that process for yourself. Don't be afraid to do something different, and don't be afraid to, I don't want to say put yourself out there, but I guess initiate things in a way that you've never done it before. Don't be afraid of doing that. However, as we go into the weekend, we are going to have the moon go into Scorpio, and it's going to trine Mercury and Neptune. And, this is definitely going to be a time where we're going to get a little bit more intuitive of how we feel about this situation. We're going to be able to see the I don't want to say the darker things, but the things that can be kind of hidden in the shadow and in the backdrop of stuff. That's when we're going to start to realize, okay, this is how I'm feeling about this situation. We had the full moon in Libra. This is where we're delegating. This is what we're doing. Moon goes into Scorpio. It's like, all right, now how do we need to perceive these things? And what do we need to hold on to? What is this truth? What is this light? The moon's also going to be trining Mercury and Neptune, where I do think that this is going to give us some emotional clarity on this situation, especially while Mercury's retrograde and things are a little bit confusing still. However, also, no, wait, that's basically it on Saturday. But that's basically all you really got to know is the moon's going to be in Scorpio, so don't expect it to be, you know, a walk through the park. Expect it to be a little bit more serious and a little bit more focused in, a little bit more laser-pointed precision. But then as we go into Sunday, we are going to have the moon start to oppose Mars in Taurus, which, you know, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but Mars in Taurus is like, I want things to be this way and I'm not changing it. The moon in Scorpio is kind of like, I'm going to antagonize you until you do, or until we just realize we're both too stubborn to even change our minds. So also on Sunday, the moon is also going to sextile Saturn. It's going to square Venus. But the most important thing on Sunday is we have Mercury conjoining Neptune again. Mercury's not stationing direct just yet. That's going to be next week. But as Mercury comes back over Neptune, still retrograde, like, I think this isn't a time to be like, I'm super clear on what's going on. My mind is sharp. I'm ready to go. It's kind of like Mercury is still retrograde. It's still moving backwards. It's going to hit Neptune. I think the biggest thing to do is take a step back and really look at the plethora of what's like I don't want to say the plethora of options, but like, look at the big picture. Look at the big story. And it's not about dividing it into one or two perspectives to look at it, but it's about going, this is this way and this is that way. This is this way and this is that way. This is about going, okay, what is confusing and what doesn't make sense and what is starting to make sense. And, you know, I get a lot of crap about me talking, you know, saying Neptune isn't really a positive planet. It really isn't. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you can look up most astrologers when they were discovering Uranus, Neptune, Pluto said, yeah, these planets suck. They're not, you know, you can't see what they're doing. You can't see them with the visible eye. How is that supposed to be positive? Anyway, I could riff on about that all day long, but the idea of Neptune is illusion, duality, mysticism, and yes, there's a spiritual sense there, but you have to remember, you can't see your spirituality. You feel that stuff. And you have to be like aware that what you see in front of you may not be exactly what you think it is in your mind. So as Mercury conjoins Neptune, my biggest advice is take a step back and look at everything that you experience. Look at everything that this Mercury retrograde showed you and go, it's not about making a decision on that, but it's about seeing that picture. And what I wanted to hit on is, yeah, it's about understanding what is real and what's not real, but what's also important is the spiritual aspect I just talked about. We don't see that. We feel that. We understand it. And while Jupiter is squaring Mercury, Jupiter squaring Neptune and Sagittarius, I think this is about taking a leap of faith. It's not about knowing the answers or knowing the facts. Sometimes you're just not going to know those things. But what is it going to take for you? What things do you need to know for yourself that you can make the decision to go, I may not have all the answers, but I'm ready to take this leap of faith. I may not see my landing, but I'm going to jump anyway. And I think that's what's going to be important about Mercury conjoining Neptune is you may not see it all clearly, and it's not about making a decision, but what exactly do you need in order for you to trust what it is that you're doing, in order for you to feel confident in your understanding of the situation. And then as we go into Monday, we have the moon going into Sagittarius, trining the sun. And that's about it. I think it's going to be a lot more positive than it usually is. I think I'm out of like recording time, so I kind of have to like wrap this up real quick. But Monday's going to be a little bit fiery. Monday's going to be a little bit exciting. And then after that, we have Venus going into Pisces. We have Mars going into Gemini. And we got a lot to talk about. We have Mercury going direct too. So we got a lot to talk about next week. But with that being said, that's it. And that's what I got for you guys. And I know this week is going to feel a lot more intense than usual. A little bit more, you know, I don't want to say more intense than usual, actually. It's just going to feel a lot more clear. It's just going to feel a lot more charged up and, you know, things are actually starting to move along. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate you guys so much. I'll be doing monthly horoscopes and putting those out this week if you're still watching this. But yeah, those will be out this week, so get excited for that. And with that being said, that's what I got for you guys. So thank you guys so much again, and I'll be seeing you next week.